Oh, WrestleMania 9, where Vince let Hogan fuck it up by cashing in the Money in the Bank briefcase, even though it wasn't invented for 12 more fucking years. Whoa. WrestleMania 9, the worst of all time. Let's go. I'm John Renton with the retro review of WWE WrestleMania 9 from Caesar's Palace in Las Vegas / Paradise, Nevada, and goodness goddamn me, this event has aged like milk, even at 12 years old. Watching this on pay-per-view at a friend's house, I was thinking, what are they doing? Why is this event not good? Even at that age where you're not necessarily smart to wrestling, for somebody, if you're like me, and I know I am, and you were a big fan of Bret the Hitman Hart, you wondered, what the hell was Vince McMahon thinking? Let me know your thoughts on this event in the comments, please. To me, this is the worst WrestleMania of all time. Yes, WrestleMania 11 felt more like a glorified 3-hour Raw, and WrestleMania 16 was kind of a goddamn mess, despite the triangle ladder match, and the fact that 2000 was a bit wonky when it came to pay-per-views, at least at that point, even though Royal Rumble 2000 and other events actually weren't that bad. And then we hit a roadblock, end of the line with WrestleMania 16, aka WrestleMania 2000, and then picked back up after that. And this Mania, this goddamn Mania 27, Mania 29, Mania 32, that in some alternate universe, and possibly in this one, is still going on to this very day. WrestleMania 9 was the beginning of the goddamn downturn where Hogan basically just neutered and cut the legs out from under the goddamn company, where it took them a full goddamn year to start recovering. And I remember watching this at the time, watching WWE at the time, even watching WCW Saturday Night, and both companies were doing some good things, but they were going through a weird transitional period where might as well actually talk about the history that led up to WrestleMania 9, because the event itself is such goddamn dog shit with dodgy finishes, referees looking stupid, a couple disqualifications, one countout that was named that seemed like it would be a disqualification, and just Bret Hart getting absolutely screwed over, Yokozuna getting his moment taken away, all because Hulk Hogan had to be the champion. Because Vince McMahon wanted to go back to the guys that built his company. Even though the crowd popped, by that point, people were sick of Hogan. People were sick of Hogan before the Royal Rumble 1992, in my personal opinion. It just got to where nobody wanted to see Hogan because Hogan got stale. Hogan had been in the company since January of 1984, even though he'd been off for a goddamn year. But let's talk about the history leading up to this. Let's go back to Royal Rumble 92. You know, you have Flair win the title, but Hogan make sure that the focus was on him and Sid. So they had the main event. Savage and Flair, even though that was the much better match, was on the undercard. It was about halfway through the goddamn show. Savage wins the title. Hogan left the company. Was totally gone. It was because of a steroid trial and a whole bunch of other stuff, and he wanted to retire and get into acting and do all this, and we saw how his movies turned out. Mr. Nanny, Santa with Muscles, Suburban Commando. I think it's pretty bad that No Holds Barred might have been the best movie that he did on his own. Actually, that's unfair. Rocky 3 would have been the best movie that Hogan did. You know why it was the best goddamn movie that Hogan did? Because Hogan wasn't allowed to really do anything except be a big, muscly guy that threw people like the midget Sylvester Stallone. At least he seemed like a midget compared to Hogan. Now, you look at Mania 8, Hogan leaves. They're going through the steroid trial, the drug testing policy, all that. Well, I mean, the steroid trial was still a bit off, but the federal government, Dr. Zahorian, which sounds like an evil villain from like a knockoff Star Wars movie, in all honesty. Like, really, Zahorian honestly sounds like it's like the Lord Zahorian. Yes, I will kill the galaxy of Gacta. I don't know why I'm talking like that, but Dr. Zahorian, all this stuff. All this weird shit's going on. And Vince McMahon realized that he had to go with guys that weren't going to pop the viewers, you know, like visually, like, holy shit, like, you know, nothing's really changed. It was a dramatic change after after Mania 8. A lot of guys left. A lot of guys with drug problems. A lot of guys that were big. A lot of people left the goddamn company. And he went He realized he had to go with guys like Brett, with Shawn. Shawn would become the Intercontinental Champion. When Davey got popped for stuff, Ultimate Warrior's comeback did not go all that well because he was getting the HGH and pushing and Warrior. And then Warrior wasn't going to be part of the Royal Rumble 93, where Brett said that Warrior was actually going to put over Brett by tapping out to the sharpshooter, which would have been interesting to see. Wouldn't have been nearly as good as Brett versus Razor at Royal Rumble 93, but I digress. Through all this, Savage is a champion, loses it right after SummerSlam 92. Brett wins it from Flair after Flair beat Savage for it and held it for all of 6 weeks. Beat him at a house show in Saskatoon, I believe. Saskatoon or somewhere in Canada. And he was a champion, faced off against Shawn Michaels at, Survivor Series 92. Champion versus champion, WWF IC champion. Beat Razor Ramon after Razor had been targeting his family, specifically Owen. And then we get to WrestleMania 9. And that's not the only match. We had, at the Royal Rumble 93, we had Undertaker being beat up by Giant Gonzalez, who had been Elegante in WCW. That didn't work at all. And look, bless the guy. Apparently nice a guy as you'll ever meet. We had that history. That was leading up to that from attacks at the Rumble and subsequent TVs. And other matches, otherwise you had Luger and Perfect that were having their skirmishes, because Luger was going to be a heel and he was going to be the narcissist, as Heenan said. But then you just see how certain people that were featured more prominently were pushed to the side. Randy Savage was not wrestling on the goddamn card after winning the title the year before, because Vince wanted to go with youth. He had to have other people on the show, but he couldn't have Randy goddamn Savage on the show. He had some matches go twice as long as they needed to, but couldn't have Randy Savage on the show. Ric Flair left right after the 93 Rumble. Went back to WCW, had a non-compete, couldn't get back in the ring until Slamboree or Beach Blast of 93. He could appear on TV, he just couldn't appear in the ring. And it was Slamboree, Beach Blast, it was Clash of Champions, one of those three events. The whole point is Vince went through a whole transitional period, and various other talents, even though they were trying, there were talents that were trying on this show. But you just take a look at the venue, you take a look at the fact that Hoosier Dome, take a look at how Mania started. You had Mania 1 in Madison Square Garden, 19,000 some odd people. Mania 2 at Madison Square Garden, or was it Nassau? Was it Nassau? I'm trying to remember. It was New York, it was Chicago, the Rosemont Horizon, and then it was in LA, at the LA Sports Arena or something like that. And, 3 locations. And then Mania 3, of course, the 93,173 people, totally legit number. 78 to 80,000 is what I'm guessing. Though I would not be surprised if they just tried to inflate it, at least that once. Vince never inflated numbers after that. Mania 4, Mania 5, Trump Plaza in Atlantic City. Back when people just knew the guy was a goof. But that venue. And then the Sky Dome for Mania 6. 66,000, 62,000, 68,000, whatever the fuck it was. 60,000 at least. Because it was a significant crowd, because Toronto's always been a hot wrestling city. Especially at that point. And then you had Mania 7. That was going to be at the LA Coliseum. Trojan Stadium. But the Trojans couldn't protect them from bad ticket sales. And in fact, nobody wanted to see Slaughter as a heel with the whole, Persian Gulf War and all that stuff and everything. Or Desert Storm. Whatever war, whatever name you want to put on that goddamn thing. Had to be moved to the LA Sports Arena, and actually that turned out to be a much better atmosphere. A, because of weather, and also security concerns. They were concerned about security. Well, you should have booked a better angle. And then the Hoosier Dome, where they had ticket issues. I retro-reviewed Mania 8 last year or the year before. I forget what. I've retro-reviewed a lot of these things. I actually retro-reviewed Mania 9 5 years ago, but decided I want to just have more anger this time. Mania 8 had 50, 60,000, how many ever could fit in the Hoosier Dome. But they had ticket issues where people were getting into the show late. Because nobody bothered to think, maybe we should start letting people in 90 minutes before the show because it's a goddamn stadium. But no. let's not do that. So now we go to Mania 9. And yes, there's history with a couple of the other matches and stuff like that I'll talk about when I cover the matches. But giving just the overview here, they had, SummerSlam 92 in Wembley Stadium. Survivor Series and Royal Rumble were in pretty significantly sized arenas. And here, this is the first outdoor Mania, one of many. They didn't actually end up going outdoors again for a while for good goddamn reason, because the weather, the elements, even though Nevada traditionally might get sandstorms deep hurting. But then what was the next one that they had outside? Was it Mania 24? It was Mania 24, Mania 28, 29, 31, which was weird. 31 was an odd one. And then they had 33, 34 wasn't outside. 35. They had a lot of they've had some outdoor Manias, which to me was a mistake, but nevertheless. So the whole point is that through this brief history, Vince McMahon had to rely on some other people that weren't steroid freaks and weren't all crazy. Despite the fact you look at Lex Luger, Lex actually was clean, believe it or not. And now we get to the whole show starting now, basically, where we talk about, Mania 9. It's in Caesar's Palace in Paradise / Las Vegas, Nevada. Almost 17,000 fans. And I forget the guy's name because they showed footage of, it was on Legends of Wrestling, the outdoor events, In Through the Outdoors, I think is the title of it. And one guy who's a producer for them, who is a much better producer than Kevin Dunn, because really, honestly, anybody is better than that Bucky Beavertooth motherfucker. What ends up getting revealed is, the arena is just bleachers on four sides of a big space. And you look at that, it almost looked like a minor league ball field show. Until they dressed it up. They dressed it up with, the Roman theme and all that and everything. They wanted to put columns around the goddamn thing and put a cover over the ring, because it makes sense. You never know if it's actually going to rain. And you wanted to do something bold and crazy, and they showed people, getting the stuff together, and actually that was a pretty good documentary that I think it was on WrestleMania 2000. I think it was on that DVD, which is probably out of print by now. We probably would have to look for a lot of this. Probably have to, just finagle it out of somebody, or finagle or whatever, or Fraggle Rocket out of somebody and get it for less than, 30 fucking bucks. It's a $1.1 million gate, which was down significantly compared to the Hoosier Dome, but as far as production costs, they didn't have to have nearly as many security people and all that, but they did dress that thing up. All the gold, the Roman motif and all that. The world's largest toga party! And widely regarded as one of, if not the worst WrestleMania of all time. It is the worst WrestleMania to me. Because it pisses me off just what damage it did. Because yes, again, WrestleMania 11 and some other WrestleManias are worse as far as matches. But this is when they were coming off of Mania 8 that didn't quite fully click, but when it clicked, it was good. And now, Vince McMahon had a chance to go with youth, had a chance to go with people they could have carried, because he didn't need to rely on the old guard anymore. Even though I argue Randy Savage should have been part of the goddamn company, because Savage is all about putting people over. First outdoor Mania event ever. Vince's over-the-top intro. Caesar's Palace in Las Vegas. It's amazing that Vince McMahon actually didn't blow his throat out like I have trying to do his impression. Gorilla Monsoon. I'm sad now because I miss Gorilla. And he never got over, he had illness, but he never got over his son passing away. His son, who I believe is Joey Morella, and I passed away. He was a referee on the show. Fun fact, one of the referees, besides Joey Morella, Earl Hebner, Bill Alfonso, before he had the goddamn whistle, and was one of the most annoying and infuriating worst parts of ECW television. Fight me in the comments if you want. Because, yeah, it served a purpose at first, but it took away from so many of the goddamn matches. Now, Vince's over-the-top intro, Gorilla Monsoon. The one thing that always gets me, and I'm going to try not to cry about it, but it's like Heenan. He was going through his health issues and everything. It's a real honor, a real privilege when he did his Hall of Fame speech. And there's only one thing missing. I wish Monsoon was here. I was like, Ow, stop with the pain. Stop the pain. Ow. They were gold. I wish that Heenan and Monsoon had actually been able to call this, but part of the reason why not is it was JR making his debut on WWE programming. It was his first ever show. Enthusiastic. And you know him as Howard Finkel, but tonight he's Vincus Maximus. It's really sad knowing how JR would go through his first bout of Bell's palsy sometime a year after this. It was sometime right after WrestleMania 10, somewhere around that. And I don't remember what triggered, if it was stress, if it was just, I don't remember. I know that I know at one point he lost a parent or something like that. And it's just, I feel really, really bad for JR. But just seeing JR here, prime JR, even though he was good for years and years after this, it was just really cool to hear his enthusiasm. He was trying to get the Roman guards to crack, oh, this guy's been working out. That did not look like working out. That looked really, really bad. I don't apologize. And they hype up Brett versus Yokozuna and Hogan and Beefcake, the Mega Maniacs, with Jimmy Hart versus Money Inc., IRS, and Ted DiBiase. And don't worry, folks. Neither of those matches will end in controversy. None at all. Why would you wonder about that? And Caesar and Cleopatra, I forgot how enormous, the woman that played Cleopatra, I forgot how enormous her tits were. Seriously, it was amazing. I mean, if she had decided to walk any faster than like a slow pace, she would have given herself and the front row 2 black eyes. So anyway, Caesar and Cleopatra on an elephant. That poor elephant. That elephant seemed kind of... People were patting the elephant. Don't scare the elephant. And one funny line for JR, Julius Caesar dismounting that giant pachyderm. Why that made me laugh, I don't know. The trunk was also placed in a very unusual place on Cleopatra. Coming at you, Cleopatra. It's about to go all up in there and be like one of the goddamn things from Slither. Or like the thing in the worm in the Jason mask on the Jason Goes to Hell poster. So anyway, Heenan on a camel being the life of the party. But I miss Bobby Heenan so much. He was so gifted. So goddamn gifted. You stink. You smell like camel, JR said to Heenan. Randy Savage did make his entrance with women. Royal Guards. I do wonder what the 2 women that were in the front, I wonder what the blonde's doing. I still would. But anyway, I digress. The dark match, by the way, fun fact, they had some matches go on way too goddamn long. The dark match was Tito Santana versus Papa Shango. Tito won. Tito Santana being on the first 9 WrestleManias. First 8 main card, and a dark match for this. And only Hogan could say that. Only Hogan could say that he was also on those. Because, I mean, and not even Savage, because Savage wasn't in the company until late 85. So, big goddamn deal. Tito Santana often gets forgotten about as being a hell of a goddamn worker and everything. And I think still wrestles occasionally, but he's in at least his 60s. I think actually closer to 70 now by this point. But yeah, they probably should have put that match on at some point, because really, you're telling me that you couldn't have cut 3 minutes off of about 3 of these matches and given 9 minutes to these guys? Shawn Michaels' entrance with Luna. Luna making her debut, making her Mania debut, that is. I forget if she showed up on TV a little bit before this. And Tatanka had Sherry with him, and Sherry still would have at that. Sherry, just, good grief. Good God, Sherry. Shawn Michaels versus Tatanka, Intercontinental Championship match. The bell rang at 11 minutes and 30 seconds into the show. And Heenan making fun of Tatanka, saying, Chief Running Chicken, oh, circle the wagons. He's on the warpath. It's funny because it's Heenan, but geez. Heenan was skating really close to the line there. I love Randy Savage. Randy Savage is one of my favorite wrestlers of all time. He was enthusiastic on commentary. His commentary wasn't great. His commentary wasn't great at all. Like, something did not... it didn't click. This match clicked at times. Tatanka really could work at this point. And Shawn, had the weird mullet and all the stuff and everything he was doing, and was still trying to do his spots to prove to Vince that he could be the guy. But there you go. The crowd popped for the near falls. Shawn, later, the women were kind of getting involved a little bit. Shawn was getting counted out, but threw the ref out. So you're thinking count out disqualification, so he keeps the championship regardless. They rule it a count out, but he threw the ref. And that's not the only ref bump we got tonight. It was Ref Bump the Goddamn Musical. The crowd hated this. Luna then slammed Sherry on the outside, around the outside, because Sherry was on her way out of the company. I think she was gone by the summer or fall of 93. Because I know that she showed up. She was in the USWA, WWF, feud. I believe she was in Smoky Mountain Wrestling for a little bit, but I know she signed with WCW sometime in 94. And she fit perfectly. She worked with Flair. Flair had tons of respect for Sherry and vice versa. And, of course, managing Harlem Heat. Sherry was just perfect as a manager for Harlem Heat. Rest in peace, sensational Sherry. But, yeah, Shawn Michaels retains the Intercontinental Championship via disqualification countout. And it's ruled it just seems so weird how they did this, because this was a pretty good match and then got messy at the end because it was obvious they were going to do a fuck finish. Mean Gene then interviews the Steiners. Let's just say that promos were necessarily not clicking on this night because numerous people, including Scott and Rick, kind of stumbled a little bit. And what didn't stumble was the next match. The Head Shrinkers, Samu and Fatu against the Steiners. Referee Bill Alfonso before the whistle. Alpha in the corner of the Head Shrinkers. And yes, Fatu, the future Rikishi. This was pretty good. I mean, this almost felt like a longer TV match at times, because if you think about the action, because Raw had just debuted a few months before this, a couple months before this. And they were having some competitive TV matches. Fatu and Bret Hart had a great TV match a couple weeks before this, something like that. It was either the Manhattan Center or somewhere. I think it was the Manhattan Center. But they did, there were some good matches on Raw leading up to this. Perfect and Flair in the loser leaves WWE match. And then a little bit later, 1-2-3 Kid versus Razor, but, Mario Jannetty versus Shawn. The whole point, 1-2-3 Kid, that was more of a moment. Alpha got involved, even using the kendo stick a few times, Singapore Cane, whatever the hell it was. The crowd popped for a bit. They popped big when Rick was on the shoulders of one of the Head Shrinkers and picked the other up and did a slam off the shoulders. Right there. Beautiful move. And then Frankensteiner, 1, 2, 3. Frankensteiner didn't quite land. Probably good, because he would have landed right on his goddamn head. And the Steiners win. And their only Mania match. Now think about that. They went to the company in sometime later 92 and left the company sometime in 94. And they couldn't be and the company couldn't be bothered to put them on the Mania 10 card. Their only Mania match was on the worst Mania card of all, or on the worst Mania of all time. Mean Gene interviews Doink, sees what Doink did to the Caesar statue, putting the wig and the makeup and everything. Heel Doink was something else. That was Matt Osborne, whatever name you want to go by. Mr. Statutory. Him and Arm are going to get a push in Georgia Championship Wrestling, and then the statutory charge. That necessitated, a little bit of a bump there, necessitated Ole going with the Road Warriors. So, Evil Doink could have lasted a while. Bourne actually, unfortunately, had a lot of issues. And this was when they were doing the two Doink thing, and oh no, two Doinks. Crush, a.k.a. Bryan Adams, no, not the summer of 69 Bryan Adams. This is when Doink was evil. He had taken his arm out of a cast and beaten Doink with a god. Doink had beaten Doink. Too many Doinks, pal. He'd beaten Crush with an arm, or with the prosthetic arm. And all you really need to know about this is this match was slow, plodding. We had a ref bump. We got the Crush, the Crush Vice. And then the second Doink, who was Steve Keirn, who had just been Skinner the year before, wrestling Owen Hart at Mania 8 in about a 90-second match. Owen getting a win at his first Mania, where he was in the blue blazer. And then that Doink, the second Doink, Steve Keirn, Skinner, never mind that, gets the prosthetic arm and beats Crush with it about 18 million times. And then Doink wins. A second referee comes in to say, hey, wait, there's another Doink under the ring. And name was Bill Alfonso. Let's look under the ring. There's nobody there. But there's a whole bunch of bullshit that we usually didn't see under the ring. But look, there's all this stuff and everything. And oh my God, Bobby Heenan's like, it's an illusion. I wish that this next part was an illusion. Todd Pettengill talking to two Japanese photographers. Boy, this is racist. Good Lord. Razor Ramon beat Bob Backlund. Bob Backlund's first Mania appearance, because remember, he left in the summer of '84 before Mania happened. They had to pretend like Backlund had just taken 8 years off and wasn't wrestling in Japan for Pro Wrestling USA, making various appearances and doing some great goddamn shit. So, yeah, there really wasn't much to this because it lasted about 3.5 to 4 minutes and an inside cradle 1, 2, 3. Straight out of nowhere. Couldn't even hit the Razor's Edge finish. This was Backlund's only Mania... Well, this and Mania 11, his only Mania matches. I don't believe he had another goddamn Mania match. Though he was Mr. Backlund by 1995, which was much, 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 much better than what he was doing here. And then clips of Money Inc., battering briefcase with beefcake. Battering beefcake with the briefcase. And the crowd popped for Hogan with all the smoke, because he's making his entrance and everything. Yeah, Beefcake had the parasailing accident and then got his face busted. He had the titanium plates in his face. And good thing that he was able to come back from that, because it was pretty goddamn brutal. Hogan and Beefcake, the Megamaniacs with Jimmy Hart against the Money Inc. The Money Inc. That's what their name is now, The Money Inc. It's like the Ryback when Danielson said that. And basically what ends up happening is... I'm not going to talk about the goddamn match here, because it was going to be Hogan and Beefcake winning the goddamn titles, the tag titles, because it was a tag title match. And there was a jump start before, and Hogan posed and did all that stuff and everything. And don't get me wrong, like, Hogan being the tag team champion would have been kind of cool, but what ended up happening was Hogan played politics and said, no, let's just do a DQ finish. Doesn't work for me, brother. Hogan had a black eye because Randy Savage punched him out, but they said it was a gym accident. He punched him out because of the whole thing of Liz staying at Hogan and Linda's house, apparently, and Savage not liking the fact that Hogan betrayed him, basically. The match is 18 minutes and really just dragged on. Hogan got beat down. Beefcake got tagged. We get a ref bump. Beefcake is tagged in. Jimmy Hart has a referee jacket on at the end and counts down, and the crowd celebrates. But the referee ends up awarding the match to Money Inc. via DQ because they have to do all this bullshit. The crowd boos. Jimmy Hart hits the ref. The Megamaniacs are the Megamaniacs, quoted by Randy Savage. Good grief, this is a goddamn mess. Hogan and Beefcake and Hart celebrate. And then Hogan gets the briefcase, or finds a brick in there, finds money, hands it to people. Todd Pettengill's with Natalie Cole. Yes, Natalie Cole was in the crowd for this. And Dave Reichardt. Reichardt. He was the CEO of Caesar's Palace. Mr. Perfect cannot say narcissist Lex Luger. And I don't blame him, because it's hard to say. So, Luger makes his entrance with some dirty blondes holding up mirrors and pyro in the wind. Very dangerous. You would have almost fried that hair with all the hairspray there. Luger and Perfect. 1 year later, they would swap sides. Perfect would be the heel. Luger would be the babyface. And this did not click at all. They are good wrestlers. Well, Luger was good at points and could do fine against somebody that could lead him. But the narcissist character just amplified everything we already knew about Lex. So we get a backslide with Perfect feet on the rope. 1, 2, 3. And then suddenly Luger nails him with that forearm where he had the metal plate in there after the motorcycle accident and leaves. Perfect gets back up, runs down and runs through the backstage area and then attacks him in some warehouse area around a bunch of boxes. Then Shawn Michaels, who's around there, shows up and says, hey, wait a second. I'm going to hit you with 2 garbage cans, Perfect. Ha 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 ha. Power of the mullet. Sadly, that's not the messiest thing we're going to get on this goddamn show. So, yeah, hits him with 2 garbage cans. This is before ECW really was, like, a thing, as far as, like, the violence and whatever. Giant Gonzalez with Harvey Whippleman. Undertaker makes his entrance on a chariot with a vulture. I have talked about this match at length, and I'm not going to talk about it a ton here. One of the most excruciating matches of all time, as far as Mania history. Giant Gonzalez, nice guy as you'll ever meet, apparently, could not fucking work to save his life. Sleeper Hold City. And then he gets a rag with ether, chloroform, whatever, knocks out the Undertaker. That's a DQ. Undertaker gets carried to the back, but then the Undertaker dong hits. Everybody pops for the Undertaker's dong. He runs out and hits Giant Gonzalez with a few diving clotheslines and knocks him down. This was 8 minutes and felt like 80 years. Good goddamn job. Oh, boy. The crowd was chanting for Hogan during this. They were figuring Hogan was going to come out and battle Giant Gonzalez. Oh, God, that would have been brutal. We see clips of Yokozuna taking people out, including Jim Duggan, and taking out Bret Hart at the contract signing on, I believe, Wrestling Challenge. I don't even think it was Raw. That's when they were doing their syndicated television still. So, Hogan basically says, I'm issuing a challenge to you or the brother. Yeah, he said the JAP word about Yoko. That was Samoan. Hogan telling us how he felt years ago and we just didn't listen. Yokozuna versus Bret Hart with Mr. Fuji in the corner. WWE Championship match. Oh, the time's running short. Let's just cut the match in like half. Bret does his best. Yoko was winded but also was naturally gifted for his size. But really this match was like, it was just basic because Bret ends up finally using an exposed buckle spot. Gets a sharpshooter on Fuji, throws the salt in his eyes, and Yoko doesn't even hit a leg drop, just covers 1, 2, 3. And then Hogan shows up, and we're in the last few minutes, and we're frantically going, go. And Bret is like, yeah, hold the eyes and stuff like that. Hogan is hearing Fuji saying, my Yokozuna issue a challenge, and Bret's going like, go. That's fine, I held the company up while you left. Go ahead and go do that. And then Hogan dodges the salt, hits the clothesline, hits Fuji, hits the leg drop. 1, 2, 3. New champion, Hulk Hogan. That's capping off one of the worst goddamn finishes to him. Pretty much the worst Mania finish of all time. At least as far as a closing shot. And I will explain why. This neutered the company, knocked the company down. They had nothing. They had to rebuild constantly. They had to make Luger the new Hogan, which was a mistake. They had to do all this shit. They had to do all this stuff. All of this horseshit. All this horseshit led to them having to rebuild for a while. All because Hogan just couldn't do business properly. Yokozuna being the first heel champion to close a Mania. It would have worked. Bret could have won. And it would have made sense. But Yoko could have held it for almost a year. But no, Hogan had to jump in and do that. Thanks a lot, Terry. You goddamn idiot. Mania 9, hooray! Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Like, share, subscribe, Twitter handle in the description. I'm John Retlin. I'll see you soon.